Hi everybody, it's Kim from Fleece and Harmony. Welcome to the Fleece and Harmony Knitting and Crochet Podcast. We're recording in our yarn shop that's in our woolen mill on our sheep farm in Belfast, Prince Edward Island. And if you're new here, welcome to kind of a crazy podcast or video, whatever, that talks about our life on our sheep farm and the mill and all the knitting and crocheting and everything else that goes on around here. If you're back for episode 103, thank you very much for sticking with us all this time. And if you're watching this on the day that it's published on YouTube, it is August 19th. As usual, we're going to start with a farm update, which is now becoming a renovation update because I promised I would show some pictures about our farmhouse renovation, so I'm going to do that. We have some whips, still no FOs, even though I said that I wanted to have an FO or almost have something FO'd for the next podcast. Didn't happen. Nobody that's been following me for a while is surprised at that at all. And I have the list of 5 as usual, and this time it's Celtic Knits. I was feeling interested in cables for some reason in the last couple days, so I'm going to show 5 great Celtic knits that I found. And I am going to talk about Wallflowers, but unfortunately Betsy couldn't be here tonight, so I'm recording on my own, and she will be back again in the next podcast. But I'll show my Wallflowers just with the whips and rips, I think, rather than doing a separate section for my part. And we will have a shop update as well, as usual. I'll talk a little bit about Arne Carlos, and I have a Fibre Festival update. And this week I'm going to talk about custom fit knits. And the Harmony part is been filmed or recorded in Fisherman's Harbour in Nova Scotia, which is where I have a cottage, which I'll talk about more before we put on the video and the peaceful, relaxing music to bring us all down from a rough week. Maybe a rough week. Wasn't really that rough, just kind of really busy right now. So first of all, for the farm update, we'll start with that. And everything's going well on the farm. Actually, my project for the last 2 weeks has been bunny brushing. So the Angora rabbits have started to molt. So rabbits shed their fur about once every 3 months, and my little gang of 8 has started to molt their fur now. And you have to really brush them when that's happening, because if you miss it and you don't brush out all of the hair that's coming loose, then you end up with a big blob of messy fur on a poor animal that is this size but looks about this size. Well, actually they're about this size and they look like this. So I have been busy brushing them every single morning to make sure, well, there's 8, so I do one a morning usually, or 2. And that's just part of the chores right now. And but you know what that might mean is that coming up sometime soon, there's probably going to be some Iona bunny being made. There is a lot of fur this time, or wool actually, from an Angora rabbit. They call it wool. And I'm just not sure when we'll get to it to start spinning it, but there's a big batch, bigger than usual, because I've been very disciplined about keeping their fur really smooth and free of mats in the last little while. So it just means that the wool harvest is going to be bigger. And I don't shave them. I actually do comb them. So it's all hand combed by moi when you get a chance to buy the Iona bunny or shop for the Iona bunny. It's all been combed out rabbit by me. So that's exciting. And then the house renovations are coming. It's still in demo mode, but within the next couple weeks, we'll be starting to build back. Ken and I were getting a little bit, well, we're not really worried, but now we have a house with no insulation, and they disconnected both heating systems that we have. We have an oil furnace as a backup and a wood burning furnace as our main source of heat in the winter. And both of those are now disconnected because they had to put a beam in the basement. So it's still August, So we're not in any danger of freezing to death, that's for sure. But it did get down to 15 last night, I think. And so with no insulation and all of the house, there was no plywood when they built the house in 1860, whatever. So the wood in the house is all wide boards about like this wide. And but it's not a solid thing, it's planks. So there's cracks everywhere where the wood has dried up over 160 years. And so we were talking to our construction guy who's doing a great job, but we're like, so we are going to have some kind of at least insulation before it gets really cold, because I'm always cold. Even in the summer, I'm cold. So they said, yes, don't worry. So we're not worried much. So we'll see what happens, what that brings. But I am going to show you some pictures. So the before pictures are when we came to look at the house when we were going to buy it. So that was in 2012. We did a little bit of work inside after that. So this is not exactly what we're renovating from, but you get a pretty good idea of what the house was like. And then you'll see where we are now, and it's pretty amazing. It's kind of like right back to the bare boards. And Ken and I, as most of you know, if you're regular viewers, that we had the house temporarily divided in two. So there was like 2 apartments there, but easily converted back to a single family home, because we knew at one point we would want to renovate the whole thing and just bring it back to one house. So now we're living in half the house, but everything from the other half is now also in the half that we were living in. And so it's like feels twice as small as it did before, which was already pretty small. So my kitchen is, I'll take a picture of the kitchen, because right now that's the kitchen, the laundry room. And we also had to store some other things in there. That's where our dining room as well. And it's pretty teeny tiny with a lot of stuff, with my big washer and dryer and everything. So anyway, take a look at the pictures. I did a little slideshow, which is a sideshow. It's like a circus. Anyway, take a look at that. All right, so I wasn't joking. We're preserving all of the woodwork, because the moldings and everything are like super thick, and to have them redone or to replace them, they're in really good condition for the most part. So you see like and they tried not to remove as much as they left as much as they could in situ in the doorways and everything, because we're not really changing the way the rooms are laid out. We're just trying to be really sympathetic to the design that it was done. And we don't want to go open concept, because that's really, it's a an old Victorian house. So you'll notice that, you might have noticed that there's doorways still standing, but there's no walls around them anymore, and for the most part. And that's because we'll just rebuild the walls around. We didn't want to start pulling off all the woodwork, because it's so old that we were afraid it might crack and everything. So we'll see what happens next. And I might not show pictures every episode because we are like taking our time, and they're doing demo, and then there's other like things that are going to, insulation guys are coming, and then heating and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily very interesting from a decorating point of view. So I won't show pictures every time, but I will try to keep you updated. So that's the house. So that's what we're living with, and that's kind of been taking up a lot of space in our brains for the last few weeks, for sure. So I guess we'll go right to the works in progress. So I have been still sticking to my plan. I'm only working on one sweater project and the Wallflowers, so the 2 projects. And in the last episode, I knew it when I said it. I shouldn't be saying it, but I did anyway. And I said, hopefully I'll have the sleeves done by the time the next episode is aired. Not going to happen. So, however, I did get quite far. I have been working on them every day, but to be honest, I don't have more right now, getting ready for the Fibre Festival and everything. I really don't have more than an hour to knit in the evenings. So this is where they are. The increases, the sleeves are 2 at a time, and there should be a picture of tungsten here somewhere in this segment, so everybody knows what we're talking about. So there's no design on these sleeves. It just has the contrasting cuff, and I'm working 2 at a time, and I only have 4 sets of increases left to do, and then it's straight knitting to the top. And this weekend I have to go back to Halifax. It's my dad's celebration of life this weekend, actually, and so I'm not going to get any knitting done on the weekend, and that's when I get any little chunks that I get done. That's usually when I get done, so I'll be busy with family things on the weekend. So here are the sleeves for the tungsten. So it's going according to plan, except at some point I'm really happy that I always do sleeves 2 at a time, because honestly it is true that once you had one done, and you'd be really kind of depressing to have to start a second one and your sweater is still not finished. So I'm happy that I choose to do that. So that's that. And I am going to make a mention that if you see things flying around, that's still the house flies. So we have had rain every second day in the last 3 weeks, and every time it rains, it's like there's a whole new crop. So we're trying not to be too obsessed by it, because it's just the way it is. There's houseflies around everywhere, so you're not seeing birds in the shop. So I'm going to show one more project. This is a project that Jennifer Hicks is working on, and somebody asked who Jennifer Hicks was. So Jennifer Hicks works with us, and she's been working with us for about a year and a half, I guess, almost 2 years by now, and she is doing the dyeing for the most part, and she's also the one that packs up all your orders. So when you do an order, it's actually Jennifer that's handling most of that, and she's a really prolific knitter and a great knitter. She knits samples for the shop, and she also has done some test knitting for a lot of different designers, and she test knits for Susan Clouston, who designs with our yarn. And she it was her rocket tee that we were showing. She was the first one that made the rocket tee, and she's knitting another design by Tanis Fiber Arts, who designed the rocket tee. So this is not our yarn, it's actually Tanis Fiber Arts yarn, but I'm thinking that it's kind of like the last little chance to do a summer top and to show one. So I'm going to show, it's called the Floodlight tee. And it looks kind of similar in a way to this shaping, some of the shaping of the rocket tee. And Jennifer's just to the point where she would be separating for the sleeves. It's also knit with a fine yarn and alternating with a kid mohair blend. And the little point of interest in this sweater, the little detail that's really cool, is this is the back, and you start, I'm just going to hold this up. So you start the sweater flat. So you create this little notch in the back, and then what happens is you attach an I-cord around the top of the sweater, and that gives edging to around the neck, but you also create a little string or a ribbon, and you tie a little bow at the back. So it's really, really cute. And it just is another lovely light top. If you've knit your rocket tees and you want something different but kind of similar, then I would suggest this pattern is really sweet, the Floodlight tee by Tanis Fiber Arts. So Jennifer's working on that, and when she gets that finished, we'll show that as well in one of the next podcasts. So I think we'll go right to the list of 5 right now. And this week, I don't know why, I've been thinking about cables, like I said, and I wanted to do a list of 5 Celtic knits. So it's not all sweaters. I picked a bunch of different little items that you might want to knit as well, and some bigger projects that are sweaters, but they all have cables and have a Celtic feel to them. And a lot of cable knits use like a worsted weight yarn or sometimes an Aran weight. I didn't choose any that are an Aran weight because that's pretty heavy, but I chose some projects that would work really great with our worsted weight. And people that know our Selkirk worsted know that it's a 2-ply, and 2-ply is not normally recommended for cables because you want like a really round yarn when you're doing cables. It's usually, they really pop with a 3-ply, but I'm really happy to say that our worsted weight gives you great cable definition as well. And I think that it's because of the spinning of the actual yarn itself, because it's semi-worsted, so it's quite lofty, and I think that's how come we can get away with getting some great cable definition even with our Selkirk worsted, which is a 2-ply. And if you don't believe me, I dug out my Batt's arm, and I have it here, and I'm going to show you because this was knit from with our Selkirk worsted. So it worked great for the color work, and it definitely worked great for all of these cables. And if anybody doesn't know Batt's arm, if you haven't watched past episode, it took me a year to knit this sweater, and it is a beautiful Jennifer Beale sweater. Jennifer, of course, is from Newfoundland, and she names all of her patterns after places in Newfoundland. So this is Batt's arm, and Batt's arm is close to Fogo Island, or maybe on Fogo Island. I'm not sure, but it is a place in Newfoundland, and this sweater, of course, is just stunning. I was in love with it the day that I saw it come up on Ravelry, because you have these inserts with the color work. And I thought when I started to knit this, I was kind of afraid to knit it because I thought, wow, your tension has to be perfect because you have to fit in all of this color work with the sleeves and the pieces. And but the crafty and very smart Jennifer Beale has made a pattern that actually it works. You don't have to have my gauge is not always perfect, and it works in this. But all of this to say, I was just talking about the cables, but I got off the track there for a second. But this is a good example of how Selkirk worsted looks in cables. So it's absolutely doable. And I'm going to just put this over here, and we'll go right to the list of 5. So the first sweater on the list of 5 is a long cardigan with a hood, and it's called Piscataway, and it's by Alison Green. And as always, all of these patterns are available on Ravelry because I want to choose things that can be bought individually on Ravelry. So the most people, if you see something that you want to try, you're going to have good accessibility to it. And I'm giving you the price in Canadian dollars, but of course, if you're shopping from the US, because in Ravelry, it's usually US dollars, but I'm converting it to Canadian, and I'll tell you what it is in the US dollar as well. So Piscata Aqua. I can't say it again. Did I say Piscataway the last time? That's not it. It's Piscataqua, I think. Piscataqua. So it's I'll have the title below. Anyway, Alison Green, $9 Canadian, and there is just this great hood on it, and it's tunic length, but I just love the back. So I'm going to show a picture of the back of this because there's that tiny little insert in the back with the cable in that triangle. And that's how she craftily has done some of her shaping in the sweater by doing that, using that insert and the way that cables work to be able to create that beautiful design. It's been out for quite a long time, so there were quite a few projects, and as always I read the project notes and I look at all the different pictures of people that have knit the sweaters or the items so that I can see, like, is it reproducible? It's not just the test knitters that were able to get the sweater or thing to look like it's supposed to, but that everyday knitters can do it. So that's kind of my test for these patterns, so that you can, if you see something that you like, you'll have pretty good confidence that it's been vetted with I've been looking at the project notes and everything. So I'm not going to try to pronounce it again, but Alison Green did a great job on this pattern, and this was my number one for Celtic Knits. The second project that I picked is actually a pillowcase, like a pillow, and it's the Celtic Oak Pillow, and it's by the designer Barbara A. Pott, and it would be about $9.50 Canadian if you were to buy it on Ravelry, and it's also good in a worsted weight. I just love this design with the oak leaves and then the Celtic braids around the outside. And the buttons, it closes with buttons on the back, and the picture she has like wooden buttons. They're just beautiful, and it's just a really good pattern and perfect in worsted weight yarn, but not a lot of yarn, so you could probably use it. Make it out of something that you have in your stash, so you can check that one out. The third one is I think it's fairly well known pattern, and it's the Stowaway throw or blanket, because the pattern comes with two sizes, one for throw size and one for blanket size, and it is by Anita Designs. And I remember when this pattern was launched on Ravelry, and I remember saying, wow. So you have, it's kind of, they describe it as deceptively easy, and I think I would agree, because that center, all of the center field is really just knit and purl, and it's the cables around the outside, which might be, if you haven't done cabling, that might be the part that you might find a little bit more challenging, but it is, overall, it's not cable everywhere. So I think that this would be a pretty doable pattern for most people, and that sells for about $8 Canadian. And for the small throw, you need 990 yards of yarn, and for the large size blanket, you need 2,640 yards. So the blanket does take quite a lot, but there's lots of samples of the throws. And this, like I said, I remember when this pattern was launched, because I just thought it was so beautiful at the time. So the next one, number 4, is the Curdock cardigan, and I think I'm saying that one right. And this is a Carol Feller design, and Carol Feller is just a fantastic designer. I mean, she makes really, really great patterns. She also does some great tutorials, and she's a short row expert, I would say. And this cardigan is just beautiful, and obviously like a much more traditional kind of Aran looking cardigan. And I have to say, for the number of people that have done this project, this pattern had the highest rating that I've seen, I think, in any of these projects. So there's a lot of projects that have been done, and her rating for the overall rating for the pattern is 4.9 out of 5, and her rating for the clarity is really, really high as well. So this is just she's a reliable designer, and it's a beautiful, beautiful sweater. Cardigan, and very traditional, but just lovely. And I think it looks great in the natural color, which would be like super traditional. And but you could do it in other. I saw some pictures in a light gray, and it was just beautiful as well. So that's it. The Cardock. I'm putting my Gaelic in there. I'm not sure if I'm really even pronouncing it right again, but this is pick number 4. And then pick number 5 was, I actually found this on Pinterest, and then it directed me to Ravelry because I didn't see it on Ravelry when I was doing my search there. But it's called Interlochen, and I think it's a play on words because of the way that the cables work and the design of this wrap. So it's a wrap, and it's designed by Carol Sunday, and you're seeing it next to me, and I can just see all kinds of possibilities with this wrap. I think it's so cool, especially the way that the end tucks in with those loops that you have there. I'm picturing you could even do contrasting colors on the loops, would be really cool. And I just thought it was really nice and stunning, and definitely fits the description for Celtic style knit. It's made in quite a fine yarn. She used a sport weight. And I looked around the shop to see what yarn I would suggest to use it with. And our Selkirk worsted would be too heavy, and I don't think you would want to knit it out of lace. But the Island Blend Fine by Rowan would be perfect for this. It will be beautiful and drapey, and that yarn is so lovely and soft, and just a beautiful, beautiful yarn. Unfortunately, Rowan is discontinuing it. But I have all of the colors that they make, and I have them in sweater sizes. So I checked to see how many skeins of Island Blend Fine it would take to make this wrap, and 10 skeins makes the wrap. So if you want to purchase the yarn from the Island Blend Fine, I do have enough skeins at least for one wrap in every color that's there. So you can choose your color. Some of the colors I have enough probably for two if 2 people wanted to buy it. But I will give a 25% discount on the yarn for this because, like I said, it is going to be a yarn that's going to be discontinued by Rowan, and it would be perfect for this cool wrap. So when you put 10 skeins in your cart, you'll get automatically 25% off of that yarn. And the name of the pattern again is Interlochen, and the designer is Carol Sunday, and it's just beautiful. It would be beautiful in Island Blend. I really hope somebody knits it because it's I'm sure it's going to be lovely. And that's about it. So that's the top 5. It was kind of a fun one because just when you do a category like Celtic knitting, then that opens up, you can look at other things. It doesn't all have to be the same type of garment or shawl or wrap or whatever. Okay, so in the introduction, I said that I was going to do wallflowers with the works in progress, and then I forgot because I don't usually sit here and do wallflowers. So I am doing now a section on wallflowers. So as I said, Betsy wasn't able to come and record today, so we don't have her example, which means that I'm on pressure, a lot of pressure to talk about mine, and I haven't gotten as far as Betsy has, but it'll just be all the more of a surprise and more to talk about next time when Betsy comes back with her wallflowers. So I did do quite a bit of work on this this week as well, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I've done here, but I will take a picture of the wallflowers laid out on my work table so that you can see how it all looks, because I don't have anybody else to help me hold it, and it's still in 2 pieces. And I think that I will be able to get more done before this actually airs. And if I have more done when I'm doing the editing, I'll insert a picture. I'll insert a picture of the piece as far as I have it done, and I'll try to take the picture as late as possible so I've got as much done as possible in the picture. So what's happened is this is the garland that I had the last time with Betsy, and now there's 2 of the large flowers inserted in there, and I think you can see it, but you'll see it better on the picture anyway. So I had mentioned in the last podcast when I was with Betsy that I was kind of working on this garland as far as I could before it had to be joined, and then I started working on the other half of the garland, but I had a lot of the pieces done, so I've been joining a lot of pieces. So Here's the other garland. So you can see that this is actually up to the point where you would join the other big flowers again. So that's mostly done. There's a few other little pebbles that have to go here. There's still some holes in the center of it, but I have all of these small 3D flowers done. So it's just a matter of putting them in. And then after this, you attach with the large flowers, and then you've got a circle of the 2 garlands and the large flowers, and you have the middle, which Sue from the Mercery calls the void. And I've actually started doing some of the components that go into that void. And for me, I have lighter colors on the outside, and it's going to go darker in the center. And if you've been following us, you know that Betsy's is the opposite. She has darker colors in her garlands, and it goes lighter to the center. So that's why it's so great when we're both here to show it. But the parts that I've started to work on that are going to go in the center, already I can see that there's going to be a wow factor, because it's like the darkest and brightest colors that I have in my selection of colors, and it's really going to change the whole look of the thing. Right now it's kind of soft and muted, and that's what's great about this project, is that each little layer that you put on changes the way that it looks, the overall impression of it. I should mention as well is that Sue will be starting a new Wallflowers course in November, and she's already taking registrations for the next course. So if you've been inspired by watching Betsy and I with our Wallflowers, Sue is offering the course again in November, and if I'm invited to participate as a stockist, I will be giving the same offer for anybody that buys 10 skeins of felted tweed for their project. There is a code that you can use to get a discount, a 10% discount off of the yarn, and I will continue that for Sue's November classes as well. All right, so that's it, and now it's the shop update. So I was inspired by all that cable talk, so I dug around the shop and I found some books, and I actually had just received some new books as well that had dealt with cables. So the first book that I'm going to show that we've carried before and have had for a while is the Nora Gone knitting cable source book and knitted cable source book. So this is a stitch dictionary for cables, and there's 150 different designs in here, and at the end of each little section she's got the book divided up in sections of different types of cables, like 2x2s, and she goes in a lot of depth into how cables affect your knitting, like as far as gauge and everything. But at the end of each little section in the book there are patterns as well, and you can see on the back, for example, there's one of the sweaters that she has in the book. So this, if you're interested in cables, this is really the go-to on cable knitting, and Nora has just done a wonderful job with this book. So we have that in the shop. We've had it for a while, but we always stock it. And I did get another book. This is a Carol Feller book. I should say it's published by Stolen Stitches, which is Carol's company, but it's there's contributors to the patterns from different designers. So it's called Echoes of Heather and Stone, and there's some really lovely patterns in here. I think there's 8 patterns altogether, and Carol has done one, but Isabel Kramer is featured in this book, and then a bunch of really Woolly Wormhead, Jennifer Wood, Katie Westerman, and other designers. So there's shawls, there's sweaters, and they all have this really kind of Celtic feeling. So I could have actually chosen any design from this book and put it in the Celtic list of 5 as well, but I wanted to feature this separately, the book. So that's the Echoes of Heather and Stone, published by Stolen Stitches, and with other contributors besides Carol Feller. And then the latest book that I got was Cable Knits from Nordic Lands. And this is a pretty cool book, mostly Swedish. It's done by a Swedish designer, a knitting phenom. And he is learned to knit from his grandmother and has taken some of the things that he's learned to put together this beautiful book with 20 patterns in it. And instead of flipping through randomly, I've actually bookmarked some of the ones that I wanted to show. So, you know, after 103 episodes, I finally have gotten smart. So, or smarter at least. So this is one of the patterns in the book. I think I might have looked at this one first because it's red, because as you know, I'm a red fan. And then what he does here is he starts off with pretty easy designs. And then it gets more difficult as you go through the book. So here I am flipping. So there's some headband and a scarf and everything, and then you get to a hat, which is fairly simple. So you're building up your skills with the knitting. And then the next one that I really liked is this. It's called Appearances Can Be Deceiving. The appearances can deceive. Sorry, appearances can deceive sweater, and it's because it looks really complex. But if you take a good look at the pattern, it's actually fairly straightforward. So like I said, you're building up your skills. Another cute little one with that has the notched collar, and then you do the I-cord to tie it. And then when you've gone through the book and you get close to the end, you have this beautiful, beautiful design that he's put on 2 pages. So I hope you can see it. I didn't give the names of any of these, but I'll put them in the titles underneath. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. So if you're an experienced cable knitter, this is really, this would be like a heritage type project. And if you're not experienced and you've gone through the rest of the book, you should be able to knit it by the time you get there to the end. So that's Cable Knits from Nordic Lands. So that's a really nice book. And the last thing I wanted to show in the shop today is something really, really special. So if any of the regular viewers know that I had a career before I became a sheep farmer and a mill operator, and I worked my very first job with the company that was with my career was with L'Oreal, and I was a sales rep. I started with L'Oreal as a sales rep with Lancôme, and I can tell you that wasn't yesterday. And when I was a baby, baby, I met another sales rep with Lancôme called, her name is Elise Dufour. And Elise is a beautiful friend of mine, and Elise's career at L'Oreal is also complete. She has retired, just like I retired, and she is now, makes ceramics. So she's a ceramist. I think that's how you would pronounce it. And her and her husband bought an old captain's house in Lunenburg. And Lunenburg, Nova Scotia is actually a historic, national historic site, the whole town, or a UNESCO historic site. There's a lot of history in that town, and lots of sea captains' houses, because there was lots of fishing that happened from that port in Lunenburg. So Elise and her husband have renovated an old sea captain's house, and Elise has a ceramic studio in a loft in that house, next to that house. And I was just thrilled when Elise moved to Nova Scotia and was going to be in my neck of the woods, because we've been friends forever, and always kept in touch, but not really close to each other. So now we're pretty almost neighbors, I guess. Sorry, I get to see her every time I go to visit my mom. We touch base, so it's been great. And she follows the wabi-sabi principles of with her ceramics. So perfect imperfection is kind of her motto. She's been featured in East Coast Living magazine. And that's a magazine, lifestyle magazine, mostly focusing on architecture, but also lifestyle and home design. And Elise has been featured in this magazine with her, I guess I'm going to call it art, because it's ceramics, but it really is really like art. I hope that you can see it, but I will put the link to Elise's website down below, and I would also direct you to check out her Instagram feed because she's just has a beautiful aesthetic in her feed as well. So we wanted to do a collaboration together, and the thing that seemed the most obvious was to do a yarn bowl. So Elise has designed this beautiful work of art as a yarn bowl. And I'm going to show this to you. I don't want to drop it. So it's a shallow, I've never seen a yarn bowl like this. And we actually had a prototype and I tested it out knitting because I wasn't sure, because most yarn bowls kind of enclose the yarn. And but Elise looked at it a different way because she was looking at it from the artfulness of it, and she did this just beautiful, it's got this beautiful creamy glaze inside, but the raw ceramic is on the outside, and every one is different because everything that Elise makes is done one by hand, and I'm just thrilled that we have this in our shop. So it's the Fleece and Harmony yarn bowl by Elise Dufour. So I have 6 precious copies of this, and well, they're not copies, each one is an individual piece, and those are available on my website right now. I was planning to bring them to the Fibre Festival, but I'm not sure that I'll have any left at the end. So I hope that you take a look at that and take a look at Elise's other things. She does like all kinds of things, like really cool pictures, like water pictures. She does place settings of dishes, so she's been commissioned to do a lot of those as well, and just beautiful like old-fashioned candlestick holders and things. So check it out because it's really really wonderful, and she's one of my oldest and most beautiful friends. So beautiful inside and out, I mean. So if you can check her out, that would be great. And I'm really happy that we had a chance to collaborate on something. We always work together, it seemed, at L'Oreal. So every time L'Oreal is pretty famous for moving people around in the company, we always seem to end up together. So so we worked a lot together, and it's just great to be able to continue that even though we're no longer in our corporate careers. So that's the end of what we have for the shop update today, and I'm going to just talk about, like, for literally 2 seconds about Arne Carlos, because the tickets are almost sold out, but we do have some availability left, and the Knit and Purl the Norwegian way is sold out, but I have a waiting list. So if you and some of the other classes are they'll sell out fairly soon, but I'm happy to keep your name on a waiting list if you want one of the classes. And there have been people that have had things have come up because the event takes place in November, so things are going to come up. So some of the people on the waiting list have already been called to get tickets for the classes that they wanted. So check that out. And I should say that if you're looking at the website on mobile, you'll see that you see the description of the event, and it says it talks about the hotel, and there's a link to book your hotel, but you have to keep scrolling, and the tickets are all there underneath. So I had a couple people ask me, I can't see where I can buy the tickets, but I figured it out. It's because they're looking at it on a mobile phone probably, and you have to scroll down quite a ways. Unfortunately, the way that the website is set up, there's a whole menu on one side, and you have to go down to the bottom of that menu to see the rest of where the tickets are. So just you can check that out, and I hope we see a lot of you there. It's going to be really, really fun. The Sit and Knit a Bit live event is almost sold out, but I've checked with the hotel, and I'm able to add some more tickets, so we're good if you want to attend that the lecture that they're doing as well. And now I will talk about the Fibre Festival. as you might have noticed in the last 3 or 4 episodes, I'm featuring, talking about one of the presenters of the workshops in this section for the Fibre Festival. So this week I wanted to talk about Meg Anderson Kilfoyle. And Meg is actually the owner of Custom Fit Knits. So people that have been following me for a while know that I loved Amy Herzog's, I love them, Amy Herzog's book In the Present. I love them. The Ultimate Sweater book and her other 2 books about getting your sweaters to fit. Have just been, I just think they're fantastic. So Amy has decided to sell she has a software called Custom Fit Knits, and she decided to sell her company, and Meg actually purchased the company. And we're delighted because Meg is coming to the Fibre Festival and she's giving 2 classes. So I think everybody deserves a sweater that fits, and if you can get any help to do that, then I think that that's fantastic. So Custom Fit Knits is the method that was developed by Amy, and Meg, like I said, is continuing on with that tradition, and she's going to do a lecture. It's an hour and a half on the introduction to the Custom Fit Knit. So that's about how to use the programs and things like that, and just about fitting. And then she also is offering a class called Introduction to Sweater Knitting. So if you're, I always am amazed by this, that we have people come in and they say, I'm amazed both ways of what I'm going to tell you. If they're a sock knitter, they say, "Oh, I've never knit a sweater. I don't know how to knit a sweater." If you're a sweater knitter, sometimes people come in and say, "Oh, I've never knit socks. I don't know how to turn the heel." But which I always find funny, because both of them, the 2 camps, think the other one is doing something magical. I guess I don't know if you haven't done both already. So if you wanted to learn how to start a sweater and to get a course on sweater knitting, then I would suggest that you take a look at this class that's going to be at the Fibre Festival, and that's called Introduction to Sweater Knitting. And again, the instructor is Meg Anderson Kilfoyle. And that's about all I have to say for the Fibre Festival. So some of the classes are filling up. So we've got quite a few now that are sold out. There is waiting lists though as well for those classes. So if you see something there and it's filled, then the coordinators of the festival are keeping a waiting list. So they'll be able to help you out there. And it's getting a little bit more challenging to find a place to stay, but as I've always said, call the Department of Tourism. They can help you out. They've got people there that are especially there to do that, and the 1-800 number to reach them is always in my video description or my show notes. So you can or you can just Google Department of Tourism accommodations and you'll have a 1-800 number that will come up there. They have a great website with lots of information too. So now we get to the harmony part, and I went to people that are subscribed to the newsletter know this because I talked about it in my last newsletter. I went to the cottage. So Ken and I bought a cottage together with my mom and dad quite a long time ago, 30 years ago. It's hard. I keep thinking it was only like 10 or 15 years ago, but I haven't been there for 20 years because we moved away about 10 years after we bought it. So we always used to joke when we would go to Fisherman's Harbor. It's on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia, and it's really funny because everybody knows the south shore of Nova Scotia. That's where Chester and Lunenburg and Mahone Bay and all of those hot spots are. And northern Nova Scotia, of course, is Cape Breton. So people have been visiting this. But the eastern shore of Nova Scotia is pretty well undiscovered, I would say, by tourists for the most part. And there's a farm when you drive on the way to my cottage, which is called the Forgotten Shore Farm, and they have a little shop there and everything. And the people that purchased that farm are from Ontario, and I thought it's the perfect name for that because it is the Forgotten Shore. It's still the ocean and everything, but it hasn't been doesn't have all of the development, the tourist development. It's still pretty rustic. And I have to say, driving to the cottage, it looked pretty much the same as it did 30 years ago. There's not been a lot of changes there. And we used to joke when we were driving to the cottage is that it's the place where they make the fog for the rest of Canada. And that sounds like it's an insult, but it's actually not really an insult, because the fog, and there's a lighthouse with a foghorn. And when it's blistering hot everywhere else in the summer, it's still pleasant at that cottage. And there is a beach, and the beach is outside of where the fog usually comes in. So you can still have the beach weather, but if you really want to just be cool and relaxed and enjoy pleasant summer days without being roasting, then Fisherman's Harbor, Port Bickerton is the little tiny village that's the closest village. And so that's where I spent the weekend last weekend. And I took the video for the harmony part while I was on a walk with my mom and her dog early one morning. And I hope I can find the right music to go with it, because it is pretty awesome, I have to say. It's very, it's so peaceful, and it was just quiet. And I think I got some shots where you can actually hear the foghorn in the background. And I'll turn down the music and let you listen to that if I can find it if I got it in the shot. So I hope everybody has a great 2 weeks and enjoy whatever it is that you're working on, you're crafting. Also, I always forget to say this, but if you like the video, then please subscribe. It really, really helps me and to continue to go on with YouTube. Obviously, it makes the algorithms happy. And as always, comment. I answer all the comments. I'm still answering everyone. And I hope you have a fantastic 2 weeks. And enjoy the fog from Fisherman's Harbor on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye.